You have your most recent effort was to try to get the Board of Selectmen to sign a resolution basically supporting the efforts of the coalition. There was a fairly heated public discussion. Heated in the sense of maybe not raised voices, but
there was some debate.
Yeah, there was some
absolutely,
debate.
and that's fine. That's appropriate, and I, completely understand and respect where they're coming from. We had the ecotourism people. One of the arguments has been, oh, well, you say that the fishing has been adversely impacted, but for every fisherman that doesn't come to Nantucket anymore, now there are people coming. And this winter of all times, cold, terribly cold day, I was out on the way out to Great Point, and this couple comes walking down the beach. It's colder than heck. And they said, we've just come back from Great Point. And I said, I can't believe that. You've walked all the way out to Great Point? Yes. And they were a British couple. And they said, we wanted to go out and see the sea lions. And I said, well, that's wonderful. They're not technically sea lions, they're gray seals, but that's wonderful. Now, the question in response to the ecotourism argument, if it's an argument, how many people are going to come to Nantucket and make the trip out to Great Point more than once or maybe twice a season? As compared to the angling community that are avid, they're out there every waking minute. They spend their whole vacations on the beach. They're back and forth. They're in the restaurants. They're at Airbnbs, and the economic implications don't compare between, in my view, between, and ecotourism is a good thing, and I'm all for that. But I just don't think it's a compelling argument in terms of the loss of revenue from, and we had 4 fishing tackle shops here on Nantucket until recently. Now we're down to 2. So I think demonstrably there has been an economic impact. You can discuss and debate the extent of it and what the implications are.
As a result of the most recent discussion and so forth, any plans to change your approach?
No, we have what we call a 3-track approach. Raise public awareness. Thank you very much for this. That's what we're doing. Research. We think there are any number of obvious questions about the economic and environmental implications of the seal influx. And then finally political. And the selectmen, we figure we have to start at the grassroots, local level. And if we can generate at least some interest and hopefully some support, then we take it to the state level and eventually to the federal level. We've had good conversations with our state legislators and also Representative Keating in Washington, and they're all aware of this, very much mindful of it, and I think at least responsive to the kind of research that hopefully will produce some more substantive answers about what the implications are.
Have there,
yeah.
Edit that out. I lost my train of thought. You're also involved with the trustees of reservations.
Yeah, and
how do the two fit together?
Well, that's a good question.
Well, the trustees of reservations owns Great Point, of course. The
trustees of reservations owns about 1,100 acres, as you know, on the way out to Great Point. Technically, not perhaps all that well known on Nantucket. There is a national wildlife refuge at Great Point. It's all of now down to maybe 22 acres. The trustees manages that property on behalf of U.S. Fish and Wildlife. But I'm very conscious, and I always remind, and I'm glad you pointed this out, I am here speaking now on behalf of the Seal Abatement Coalition, not the trustees of reservations. There is an implied, I suppose, conflict of interest. Trustees is all about protecting and preserving habitat and wildlife. We are perceived to be not necessarily totally aligned with that, but I describe it not as a conflict, but as a confluence of interest, because clearly what happens and has happened on Great Point and now increasingly on the southernmost beaches as the seal population expands southward, it's impacting the activities on that property, the trustees' property.
Are there groups in other towns doing the same sort of thing you're doing?
There are indeed. One of the efforts that is underway now, dare I mention it, we try not to talk about it all that much because we don't want to be viewed as trying to sensationalize the issue, but you're aware that thanks to Greg Scomal and others talking about great white sharks, he's tagged 34, I believe, great white sharks in our waters in the last, these are just the ones he's tagged over the last 4 years. And that has created an effort among 10 towns on the Cape and Nantucket to address the issue of public safety in anticipation. As you know, there was an attack last year. There's that famous photograph of the kayaker that appeared last summer with this big fin following him, which was initially described as, oh no, that's just a basking shark, not to worry. Greg Scomal has since re-examined high resolution, said no, that was a great white shark. So,
and great white sharks are the only predators for the gray seals.
As far as we know, in this neck of the woods, they're the only predators. Yeah, that's one of the reasons. There's no obvious, significant, current, natural constraints on the growth of this population, thanks, well, to the fact that there aren't any predators other than the occasional gray, and the fact that we have this legislation that prevents any interference.
Pete Howell from the Seal Abatement Coalition, thank you very much.
You're most welcome, Dan. Thank you for having me.